computer.
Hey everybody, really excited to be here tonight. We've got two critiques, first page critiques to launch into. And we've got Chantel and we've got Iris. We're going to launch right into that in just a minute here. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Nicole Whistler. I'm a book coach for fantasy writers. So I help fantasy writers finish their books and write them with confidence so that they know their story works and that it resonates deeply with readers. So finish the book and improve your writing. That's what I'm all about. I love it. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to share my screen. Let me pull up. Chantel, you get to be first here.
Sweet.
And it tends to work pretty well when I actually read the page first so that you guys have like the same amount of context that I have. So first thing I want to know is, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So this is a paranormal romance from Chantel. And Chantel, I just want you to confirm that I matched the correct name with the correct submission. This is yours, right?
Yes, that is mine.
Good, good. All right, so let's dive in. This is a paranormal romance. This is page one. And I'm going to read it first, and then we'll talk through the critique. So this is your prologue, Cerberus. Cerberus looked around, his head in a daze. He felt bruised and battered, but most of all, he felt betrayed and heartbroken. There was no Tutela blood. There was never Tutela blood. He was covered in blood, but not of his own. Hers was the blood that stained the front of him, from the brim of his top lip, down every line of his chest, and even further down onto his lap. Of course, ironic to the fact that he could not shed blood, he was also cursed to spill blood for all eternity, until the day God himself decided otherwise. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away, was a literal statement all Tutelas learned, usually the hard way, at one point in their long lives. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. This, for Cerberus, was that moment. He should have known better. Only the most tainted blood would have given him the strength he had needed in such a strenuous moment. Hers was pure, like that of an angel. It was obvious it would do him no good in battle. The blood of a human was pure. Not only would it fail to provide the nutrients he sought, it was forbidden. He closed his fists as he drew in a long, shaking breath. Tears began streaming his face as the air was released from his lungs. Every muscle in his body began to clench and tighten, not with anger, but with anguish. All right, Chantel, we're going to dive into the critique here. First, want to say thank you so much for submitting, because when you submit your opening page, when you open yourself up to what's working, what can be strengthened, first of all, it's a really brave thing to do. And second of all, it helps everybody. So glad that you submitted. Let's dive into the actual critique. Make sure we've got the right one here. And I'm going to send you my notes. You'll see I have some notes up here. I've got notes on the side. Don't be intimidated. This is what everybody's critiques look like when I do them. But I can email this to you after, or I can send this to you on Facebook Messenger. So just know, Chantel and then Iris, when she joins us, you guys are going to get a copy of this. But you'll also get to ask questions in real time right now, because I want to make sure that you're clear on what's working and what we can do to even strengthen this. Okay, so the first thing I want to say, I think this concept is fascinating. If I've understood it right, we've got this Tutela, this creature, this entity who's apparently cursed to kill others, like until the end of time from the sound of it, or for the entire time that he's alive, while he's unable to actually shed blood himself. So I think that idea is super intriguing, very on point, very immersive in terms of the dynamics there and what can come from that. To help immerse readers more deeply in your story, we want to work on strengthening the emotional bond, right, between readers and Cerberus, so that it's not only Cerberus who's feeling these intense emotions, but readers are getting some of that as well. And we want to erase some potential confusion. We want readers to be right on track, following along, knowing what's happening on the page. It's okay to have some mystery, for readers to have some questions, but some of the basics we want to make sure are super clear to make it easier for them. Okay,
Okay.
so a few points here. Number one, I'm sure you've heard all day long probably about telling, versus showing.
Hmm.
Something you've done in a few lines, and I'll show you below the exact ones I'm talking about. You've told readers Cerberus is heartbroken. He's feeling this sense of anguish. And so using those words by themselves, that's one way we can express Cerberus's emotion, but we can be a lot more effective if it's our goal to really help readers feel the emotion as well. We can get into Cerberus's head. We can help readers understand, why does he feel this way? And we might not need to use the word heartbroken or anguish at all, just depending on what you do with it. So that's one thing I would say. And again, we'll look in just a minute at the words themselves so you can see kind of some examples of where I'm coming from there.
Hmm.
The second thing I would focus on is clarity. So I mentioned above, we want readers to know. Again, some mystery is fine, some mystery is good, but we want readers to know the basics of what has just happened. And so if I were to guess and to infer based on what I've read, it seems like Cerberus has done something that he's ashamed of, something he regrets, or something he feels sorry about prior to the start of this prologue, right? Like that action that he's taken has already happened, but it's not totally clear to me anyway, what it is that has happened. It seems like maybe he's killed a human that he loves. Um, and I don't know if it's like, a relative or a friend or a lover. I'm not sure. I do know he's been cursed to spill blood for all eternity. We've got that idea down. And so my first thought there is, has he been doing this already for decades or for hundreds of years? Is he like immortal? I don't know. So I'm not sure how long he's been killing people. Either way, whether it was, whether this is his first kill and he's just been cursed, or he's been doing this for hundreds of years, I would still consider, what would the prologue look like if he killed someone, in real time, or he just, takes this action in the prologue itself, instead of showing readers like his reaction to something that has just happened. Am I right? Tell me if I'm on the right track. Has he just killed someone he loves?
Okay, so in this book, Tutellas are God's creation of vampires, but they were created to protect humans from themselves. And he gave them a set of commandments, and then there was a curse put on the commandments that when they break a commandment, they turn into what's called a heathen, which is a more vile form of a tutela, which is like more your traditional vampire. They attack humans. So they have to drink tainted blood, tutellas do, to survive. This is following a pretty strenuous battle where Cerberus is ambushed with uh, Genevieve, which is the female protagonist, and she shoves her wrist in his mouth and forces him to drink so that he can gain strength when he's really weak. And then at the end of the battle, she walks away with the enemy.
Hmm.
So he's like really confused about what she just did and how he's feeling about everything. He's been through these battles a million times before, but never with her involved.
Okay. And so this is the first time that he has like spilled someone's blood like hers, and he's worried about the consequence.
Um, he's not really worried about the consequence of like what he did to her because she shoved her wrist in his mouth. He's more concerned about the fact that she walked away from him after they've kind of declared their love for each other and went with the enemy after he fought to protect her from the enemy.
Okay. So if that's why he's anguished, do you want readers to understand that? Do you want them to know why he's in anguish?
Not quite. This is a flash forward, and then it backs up about 7 weeks. after this
Okay.
prologue.
Okay. So that's an important question to ask is like, what emotion do you want readers to feel? Whether it's a prologue, whether it's page one, this goes for everybody. We always want to be asking that question. And well, let's ask, I can ask you that right now, Chantel. What do you want readers to feel by the end of this prologue?
Um, Intensity for sure. Intrigue. Um, a little bit of emotional whiplash, especially jumping into just an ordinary life because it jumps to Genevieve's POV and she's just like normal life.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I want to have that like breakaway of whiplash, and then um, I want them to feel worried for him, honestly, but also concerned about what the hell is going on with the girl that he's claiming that he loves so much.
Okay, because I just assumed that she was dead, that he had like
Yeah.
killed her because of all the blood. So
Right.
So that's something I would think about is if you want readers to feel intrigued and wondering what's going on, with this girl, we want to make sure that they're not confused to the point that they don't even know that the girl is alive, right? And so we want to look
Right.
at some of the elements that we've included and rework some things so that the basics are in place and that readers are asking the exact questions that you just mentioned that you want them to ask. So that was helpful that you just explained that. That was really good. Okay, so let's move on. Sensory details. So this is something that I often recommend to bring in even more in a second draft. But what we want to think about is, what is it that Cerberus sees? What does he hear? What does he smell? When he looks around, like we know he's upset, but we're not immersed totally in his reality yet. So I'm not sure, where he is. And you see here, I'm asking the question, where is the woman he's apparently killed? So this I've, misunderstood. He hasn't killed her at all. So that's where we want to pay attention to what kinds of questions are readers asking, and do those questions line up with what you want them to be asking?
Okay.
More of a mystery of what's happened with the woman instead of them thinking she must be dead because there was a lot of blood.
Right.
Okay, so let's dive into the scene itself, or the opening page itself. And here's where Cerberus looked around, his head in a daze. So here's where we can ask ourselves, what does he see? Here's where we can layer in some sensory details. And this way, instead of it being, general, he's looking around, his head is in a daze, something of slightly cliched language here, we can take this to more specific so that it's compelling us, it's bringing us in. We see a little piece of something that he sees, and we're like, we're with kind of with him. He's still on the battlefield. You said this is like right
Yeah.
after the battle. Okay, cool. So you can ask, what does he notice? On the battlefield, there would be a lot of smells, just a lot of sensory things
Yeah.
on at the end of the battle. So I think that's a great opportunity to bring some of that in. Here were some of the like tell versus show words. So bruised, battered, betrayed, heartbroken. And so if it was your goal for us to start feeling that intensity and that heartbreak along with him, we're just getting to know Cerberus. And so we don't know yet why he feels betrayed and heartbroken. So what I would do here, because this goes back to what we were just talking about, is we can focus on one detail that readers can understand. So for example, you said this woman that he loves has just walked away from him. She's just kind of left
Okay.
him. That's
Yeah.
something that readers can understand. His love walked away. His love had just abandoned him, or something like that.
Yeah.
You can kind of rework the wording itself. But that would be an example of something we can understand and we can attach to is he's just been abandoned or rejected or betrayed by his love, because you do have the word betrayed in here. I just didn't know who had betrayed him by the end
Right.
of this, and I think that would be a really cool detail for readers to understand.
Okay.
At first, so when I reread this, I understood what you were saying, that he is this entity, known as a
Yeah.
tutela. At first, I was like, wait, what does this mean? And then it did make sense on my second read through. So that's just up to you. If you want readers to understand, going into it, we can rework some things there. If you're okay with them looking back and understanding after, then we can leave it as it is. Um,
Hmm.
Here's where I started to wonder, okay, so hers was the blood that stained the front of him. So I do get, this is something I do understand, that whoever she is, it seems like she's important to him because he names, her and she, just the way he tends to talk about her. I get that
Hmm.
there's a woman who's important to him in some way. And I'm not sure as a reader, is she lying there in front of him? And here I didn't understand that, that she had betrayed him. So that's where we can bring in that element.
Okay.
I love this irony here where he can't shed blood, but he's cursed to spill blood for all eternity. I know I mentioned that above, but I thought that was a fantastic line. And then here's again where I'm wondering, okay, is there anybody around him right now? Is he by himself? Again, I wondered if he was with the woman. I know now that she's walked away.
Right.
I don't know if someone's around him and they can like say this to him as a mantra, or you can like italicize it. You can put it on its own line for emphasis. That's more like a stylistic comment. There's
I
nothing
could
wrong with what
I
you have.
could make it an inner thought. I have a lot of inner dialogue throughout the book,
Yeah, yeah.
and he is alone. He is currently alone.
Okay, cool. So then there's nothing that's like, again, there's nothing like grammatically wrong whatsoever with this sentence. But if you put this on its own line as an inner thought, a direct thought that's italicized, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. You know,
Okay.
like all Tutelas learned this the hard way at one point in their lives. Something like that. It's a little bit more immersive. And then instead of saying this was a statement that everybody learned, he's actually like thinking it in the
Yeah.
moment. So I think that'll make it more immersive there. And down here, okay, so this is where, yeah, I know you want there to be some elements of mystery, and this is where I was trying to piece together like the full picture. So he should have known better. Only the most tainted blood would have given him the strength he had needed in such a strenuous moment. Hers was pure, like that of an angel. Like it's a beautiful paragraph. I just got to the end of it and I wasn't sure what it meant. If I felt like I was supposed to understand more than I did understand, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So, what I was trying to do was tie in his feelings of betrayal and heartbreak, because you told us above that's how he feels. And so, this is where I felt like I should know more than I actually did understand. And so, this is where do you want a lot of this to be a mystery to readers, or did you want readers to understand the gist of what you were saying?
So, I mean, I want people to gain an understanding, but I like the mystery in the very first page because I mean, the prologue is obviously longer than one page. It goes a few pages in. But it does start to explain like she just walked into the embrace of the enemy. He saw like certain hints of emotions in her face that confused him before she walked away. There's more context in it afterwards, but on a first page spectrum, um, if this is the only thing that's going to grab your attention to be like, will you read this later? It it does make me question if I should add more detail here.
And I wonder if you started with the moment that you said she like pretty much makes him drink her blood right before this, right?
Right.
So if you even started with that moment and we don't understand as readers why that's happening, but we understand that he loves her and he sees her walking away as a betrayal, that's going to give us more pieces of the picture. And it's totally fine that we don't have the entire picture because I know you want to leave some mystery and I think that's a great idea. But at least that's something that readers can understand is for whatever reason, she made him drink her blood. and then she walked away, and he views that as he feels this great sense of loss or abandonment or betrayal. I think that's something that can get readers on board.
I like that.
Yeah. Because again, mystery does pull readers into a story, but this is something I see a lot with like clients that I work with and people that I give critiques for is if we don't have quite enough information to have like the foundation of what's going on, then we're not curious. Like we're like, we don't even
Yeah.
understand what to be curious about. And so I think just changing some things around slightly here, restructuring some things so that we understand a little bit more is then going to deepen that mystery and make it a lot more effective. So I'm excited to see what you do with that. And then last comment
Yeah.
here. Oh yeah, so this is again where I'm like, okay, so why is he feeling this anguish? I'm still misunderstanding at this point. He must have killed someone he loves. But you notice I'm not sure. I'm like, but or maybe it's some other reason. And so yeah, just bringing out a little bit more is going to intensify the mystery that you want to create here. So that
Yeah.
was my last comment. Let me know, does that all make sense? Follow-up questions, thoughts, throw them at
Yeah,
me.
no, I really like it. I think that that's really helpful. Um, what are the chances? I mean, I know some stats, but I don't know the importance of a first page versus a first chapter.
Yeah,
Like the
so in
first few
terms of
pages.
attracting the attention of like a literary agent for traditional publishing or just a reader?
Yes.
Yes to both.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for a literary agent, first page is super important. First chapter, of course, is really important as well. But a lot of the literary agents that I've spoken with, and this does not go for all literary agents, so this is not like a rule, but a lot of the agents I've spoken with personally say that they know within the first few paragraphs if they're
Oh,
going to make
wow.
an offer, if they're going to offer representation to this writer or not. Again, that's not literally every agent in the world, but that is kind of common because they get so many submissions. They go with
Mm-hmm.
their gut, and if they're not putting enough of the pieces together to care quite enough, then that can be a problem, and that can interfere with the chances that they're going to send you like a request for a full manuscript. So yeah,
Okay.
good question.
Yeah. I think that's about it. I love the idea of bringing Jenny into the beginning of it. Um, Having that moment of where she's forcing him to drink her blood because I mean, he pushes back too. So I think that
Yeah.
would give a lot more context to this. I do worry about too much revelation, like revealing way too much in doing that.
Right. So here's what I would recommend. I would rework it. So, look at the comments. Again, you'll get this. I'll email you or send you a Facebook message. Uh,
Okay.
but I would rework this and then send it out to like a handful of readers. And you don't want to just say, hey, what did you think of this? Because some people are great at giving feedback and some people have some
Mm-hmm.
trouble like expressing their thoughts or they don't really know what you want them to say or what would be the most helpful to you. So I would ask them really pointed questions like, what do you think is happening in this prologue?
Yeah.
What emotion did you feel by the end of this prologue? Do you feel connected with Cerberus or do you feel distant from him? Questions like that. And this applies across the board. So everybody who's here watching or everybody who's watching the replay, those are some great questions that you can ask any readers. I always recommend like giving them questions to answer because otherwise it might be hit or miss, right? In the feedback that you receive.
Mhm. Okay, so it's what do you think is happening? What do you feel, or no, do you feel connected?
Yeah, and those were off the top of my head. Let's see if I can remember them.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think is happening on the page? What
Hmm.
emotion do you feel by the end of this prologue? And I know you just said that the prologue continues, but when they read the full prologue, and
Yeah.
and then do you feel an emotional connection with Cerberus? With my point of view character, or does he feel distant? And this is all dependent on your goals. I'm just
Okay.
going from it, assuming that you want readers to feel at least a little bit of an emotional connection with
Oh,
him.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Any
thank
other
you.
questions?
I think that's all I have.
Well, again, thank you so much for submitting. Was this helpful to those of you watching? Did you guys get some good pointers from this?
I think yes, and not just on the actual feedback here, but how to give feedback well. I appreciated how you modeled that, the positive and the negative, and all of that together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, wonderful. Yeah, because nobody wants to. It is an important skill to learn how to give feedback. I run 2 chapter swaps per year in my Facebook group for fantasy writers, and every time I do a chapter swap, I make sure that I either give them a resource or I do a live video on how to give feedback because I have had people message me and be like, "Oh, so and so gave me the worst feedback, and they said this," and so it is definitely a skill to develop. Good. All right, Iris, are you here? It's your turn next.
Yeah, I was thinking, I kept thinking of all the different, like when you were talking about where to start regarding Chantel's chapter or opening page, and I was thinking like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to start with like Jenny's wrist in his mouth and him just being absolutely flabbergasted and horrified, feeling a little violated, and then heartbroken, as you know, later on. That was like, can you imagine like your opening sentences, and then her wrist was in my teeth, and blood was flowing, and something like that. um
Yes,
so it's so interesting to know, to try and figure out where exactly you really want to start on that first page, making the
exactly.
decision.
And you'll notice that we agree, starting with the moment in real time where we might not understand why it's happening, but we can like picture it in our head. Like we can picture her arm, in his mouth, and we're like, what is going on? And so that tends to pull readers in more than us being, in a character's head, or we're like unsure where we are or what's going on. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
or
think that would be a really strong opening, Chantal. I'm excited for you.
he just turns to her and is like, "Ma'am, this is a
Thank you.
Wendy's. Like,
That's right.
kindly remove yourself."
I am excited to see how it evolves if like when I make that change just to see how it looks. Because I've actually been curious if I should start at the point that it's starting at anyway. I've been told that it's really blood heavy on the first page, just like blood, 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 blood. And that is definitely not something that will draw people in from what I've been told.
Yeah, and it's not, I would argue that it's not blood. Like you can have a totally different opening that has blood that will draw people in, right? So it's all about how it's handled. What are the stakes? Do we know enough of what's going on that we have the potential to care about it and to care about the
Right.
characters? But yeah, such a common question I get. Am I starting my story in the right place? And it is an important question because it determines, are readers going to read on, or are they going to say, this one's, maybe not for me. So always important to think about, but important to finish your book and then think about
Yeah.
such things. We've got to say that. Okay, I think Iris not here live? That's fine if she's
No,
not.
Iris is here, but Iris is in line at the pharmacy, so I don't know how much interaction she'll be able to participate in. But by all means, keep trying. She's listening.
Perfect. All right, here we go. So I'm going to do the same thing here where I read the opening page and then we're going to critique it so that you guys have the same context that I have. So I have a client named Iris as well, but this is a different Iris. Looks like Iris is writing mystery romance. Here we go. I love mystery. This has been happening almost every night lately. A dream where Arlo would be with someone, but he couldn't see their face clearly. Their voice distorted. He couldn't determine their gender or anything else. The worst part was the unfamiliar places. He could barely make out what they were saying part of the time. From what he could, they were talking about a case that happened a few years ago that still isn't closed. The only clues he can gather from what he's learned over these last 2 months are a painting, a field of irises, and a house on the cliffside by the sea. He didn't know what these things meant, nor how was he supposed to figure out anything with just those 2 things. He always tried to ask them who they were, but every time they changed the subject, redirecting it back to those 2 things. He would wake up frustrated, just wanting to know the truth behind these dreams. He sighed and leaned up in bed, a familiar black ball of fur curled up against my side. His cat Moon always slept beside them and stretched, looking up at him with a curious look. He lets out a small meow and hops down, going straight to the door to be let out. He chuckles, getting up and opening the door for him. He fed him, not feeling hungry myself, but knew if he didn't eat at least something small, then he would forget to eat. Grabbing a yogurt protein drink from the fridge, heading back to his room to get ready. Quickly drinking it, throwing it away a few moments later. Pulling on a dark green tank top with a white button up that was left open and blue jeans. Black, short, laced-up boots that were always comfortable to walk in. A couple of stud earrings and mini black hoops, simple chain necklace, and black single strap bracelet on my right wrist. Brushing teeth, then hair, pulling the shoulder-length dark brown hair back into a small ponytail, bangs framing their cheeks. Cleaning out the cat litter and taking it out, filling Moon's water, then setting the food machine. He sighed softly, grabbing the messenger bag that had my notebook, pens, and laptop, and carefully slinging it over his shoulder. Double-checking that he had my phone and apartment keys. Checking his calendar for the time of a writing meetup he had that day. Making his way out the door. All right, same thing here, Iris. Very happy that you submitted. Everybody who submits, it helps everybody to see, to hear the words themselves, and then to hear the critique.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Yay! Iris, so glad that you're here. Wonderful. All right, so I enjoyed reading this opening. Something I really liked about it is that you're already thinking of the importance of introducing this mystery into your story because your genre is mystery romance. And I know that sounds like a really obvious and basic thing to say, but it's so true, right? Like if we're not delivering on the promise of the genre, that's going to be something that turns readers away, let alone anything else. So I like that you're already thinking about that. I'm eager as a reader to learn where it is that Arlo's going and what is he focusing on most as he leaves his apartment for the day. I want to learn more about Arlo. I'm excited to learn more. Here are a few items that we can talk about strengthening in this opening page. So let's dive into those. Okay, so number one, and we kind of touched on this a little bit. This was kind of a prior conversation that we have recently had. But number one would be starting in real time. And this is not like a 100% rule, right? Across the board, you don't technically have to start your story in real time. You can experiment, you can do different things. But the reason I like to recommend this is that it does have the best possible chance of pulling readers into your story and immersing them as soon as possible. So typically we ground readers in a real setting, a real moment in time, and then we start to bring in the conflict from there. So that's something we'll look at when we look at your first few sentences here. And then number two is the stakes. And again, this goes for everybody. So I hope you guys are taking notes here. Stakes. Why does Arlo care about what's happening? Okay, so we get that he has this sense of mystery, that he's like, I have some clues about my dream, but we want to know as readers why it's important to him. Because to us, we're like, well, it's a dream. Why does it matter? Why can't he just forget about it? I'm guessing there's probably some good reason for that. So we'll want to bring that out on the page. Because if Arlo cares, that's going to be the first step toward helping readers care as well. And again, that goes for everybody. So think about your protagonist. Does your protagonist care about what's happening in chapter 1? Whoever your point of view character is in chapter 1. Do they care? And not only do they care, but is it obvious on the page why they care and what they care about? Sometimes we have a whole lot of things that end up stuck in our heads and they don't make it onto the page. So I would actually go in for everybody and check your first chapter for the stakes, meaning why does it matter? And again, it's not enough for you to know as a writer why it matters. We want to put that on the page as well, unless part of the stakes are part of the mystery, which is not usually something I recommend. It can be done, but usually we want to make sure that that does come across on the page. And then here's just a small thing here. I did notice there were a few switches between, third person and first person.
Yeah, that was
you've
an
probably
accident.
written this in 2 different versions and you forgot to carry them all the way through.
Yep.
Which is fine, totally fine. That's like the easiest fix. So no worries about that. Okay, so let's dive into the page itself. So here's where we talk about the dream. And again, the mystery aspect is something that I love because you're writing a mystery romance. Mystery fits perfectly within this. Something I do want you to keep in mind, and I don't know if your goal is traditional publishing or self-publishing, both very valid publishing options. But either way, I would say it's going to be really risky to start with a dream and to start with a character waking up. And I know that there's not like a dream on the page here, but I would say the same thing for a character thinking about a dream. And the reason behind that, we've got 2 kind of basic reasons here. Again, you'll get my written notes after this. But number 1 is since dreams aren't real, or at least everybody assumes going into this that the dreams are not real, readers automatically come into this doubting that the dream matters. And so what happens is it lessens the emotional impact from the first page. And again, it's going to decrease those stakes, because if stakes are all about why these events matter, and dreams for most of us feel like the opposite of that, whether that's actually true or not in this story, readers are going to come into it thinking, okay, dreams are not real, dreams don't matter. And so I want to make sure that you have the best possible chance of increasing that emotional connection with readers and helping them understand why it does matter. So you tell me really quick, does this dream, is there something special about this dream that Arlo keeps having where it does turn out that it actually matters?
Yes, it's actually the person that he's seeing is somebody he's going to meet, and it's regarding the mystery specifically. How do I explain it in the best way possible here? Basically, it's a case that's been unsolved, but it connects to something that he's going to be a part of later on. So that's what makes it more important, is that it is going to affect him by who he meets and everything like that, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. Okay, so this is a case where it does matter. Good. I figured it probably did. And the same thing holds true, that readers are still going to come into it with their assumptions, like, why are we thinking about this dream? Why is Arlo curious about this dream? And so what I would do here is I would still ask myself, where's the best place in real time that we can start this story? And I'm not at all saying that Arlo can't have this dream, right? And Arlo can't have this recurring dream that he's constantly thinking about. That's not true, right? Of course he can have this dream, and of course it can be a central part of this story. I just wouldn't tend to open with that, because readers are going to come into it with their assumptions. And then the second reason is that, especially again, if you're thinking of submitting like a query to a literary agent and possibly getting representation from there, literary agents, unfortunately, are almost going to auto reject most stories, not saying that there can't possibly be exceptions, just on seeing if we have a dream in the beginning, or if we have like a character waking up, going into their regular routine in the beginning. just because they see this all the time. They see this so often. So that's why we want to think about what's the best possible place to start this story and show readers a little piece of Arlo's personality. You know, who is he? Who is he as a character? And so that's what I'm going to recommend here. Because we want readers to grasp, again, what's the best place for the story to start. And we want something to be happening, ideally, in real time. So these are the questions that I would ask. What would it look like if you would rewrite this in this real-time moment where Arlo is taking some sort of action on the page? It can be something simple, doesn't have to be anything crazy. What might he be doing? And I would tie that in. I would have, oops, just undid that. I would make sure that you're clear on what's Arlo's current goal. Again, this goes for everybody who's listening. You want to make sure that you're clear from your opening page what your character wants, you know, what their goal is. And so here, I know that he wants to figure out this mystery, but I'm going to encourage you to do some experimenting with your story's start and figure out how can we present this in a way that you still have the dream, you know, coming up later, but what could he be doing in real time where he has a goal, there's conflict in relation to that specific goal, and maybe we're saving the dream for a little bit later. And one reason I'm recommending that is because still, I know that he has a goal. So he's gathering clues. But again, readers don't know. They're like, but why is he trying to gather clues about his dream? You know, why does he feel this need to figure anything out? And so that's a question that I would ask here, is like, why does it matter to Arlo? Kind of what we were bringing up earlier. So we can talk in a minute about maybe some options that are coming to your mind of how you might start. And then here, so again, here's where, okay, he's waking up. He's waking up from bed. And so that's what I would be careful with as well. Let me just ask you though, is your goal traditional publishing or is it self-publishing?
I'm not really sure. That's the hard part, is I haven't really decided on that yet.
Yeah, and that's okay. I would honestly say either way, like especially if it's going to be traditional publishing, I can tell you right now, I would definitely rework that opening. But even if it's self-publishing, I would still encourage you to experiment in the same way for those similar reasons that have to do with the stakes and they have to do with readers connecting to the character right away. I know we have books like The Hunger Games where yes, Katniss is literally waking up on page 1.
Yep.
Number 1, that was, you know, the book came out a long time ago. And so we, you know, agents still see a lot of that. And then number 2, there is something unusual. I think it's like when I wake up, the other side of the bed is cold or something. And so, you know, at least she's not like waking up in her normal routine. We're getting like this unusual detail from the start. But either way, this would be an experiment worth doing. Here's what I would ask. I would ask these questions right here. I would say, what problem can Arlo be dealing with in real time? And how might I convey that on the page? And then something else that's going to apply across the board for any writer out there who's writing a character that has a character arc, right? So in other words, you're not writing just for adventure and entertainment, but you're also writing for that character's inner transformation to come out on the page. In that case, I would ask, what is that character arc? You know, what is that inner transformation? And how can we showcase the opposite of that? Meaning if they become, you know, whatever, by the end of the book, how are they at the start? So this is just a random example, might have nothing to do with your story, but if Arlo would become completely selfless by the end of the book, how can we show him acting in like some kind of a selfish way, you know, self-serving way in chapter 1? Totally random example, but you get the idea. What's the flaw? What's the false belief? What's the initial perspective that Arlo brings to the table in chapter 1? And what's the most immersive way to convey that? And this is where I recommend all the time to my clients, do a brain dump, right? Don't like sit around and think, I have to come up with the perfect solution. Just let your brain kind of spill all of the possible ideas. I would actually jot these down on paper, on your computer, on your phone, wherever, and just let yourself write all the random ideas that occur to you without judgment. And that can often give you the solution right there, where you're like, oh, what if I did this? This could change this part right here, but I think it would change it for the better. So that's always an activity that gets some fun results. So you might do a brain dump on that.
Mhm.
And then I pointed out a few, I don't know if I caught them all necessarily, but I pointed out a few of those point of view switches. So easy to switch that back to third person. And then here, so here's an example. Your story doesn't have to start with Arlo taking massive action, right? We don't have to have like a battle scene. That doesn't fit here. But you could potentially build your story's opening around something as normal as, he's whatever he's going to the fridge to get this yogurt protein drink. Or down here, I was thinking, since he has this destination, he has like this writing meetup that he has later that day, and he leaves the house presumably to head to work. These are two different things. So number one, if he's late for his job, he's rushing around, he's thinking about the stakes of what's going to happen to him for being late, maybe like the third time in a row. I don't know. That's a very different scenario from him waking up and just going through his regular routine without conflict and without readers fully understanding his clear goal. So that's what I would think about there. This was just like, I don't even know exactly why I highlighted that. I think at first I was just showing that this is like a moment that you could take that could have inherent conflict in it. He drops his yogurt protein drink on the floor and he's like, this is, the fifth terrible thing that's happened to me in the past 24 hours. I don't know. It could be anything, or it could be more tied into his job. And then again, here, this is really cool. We have this hint at Arlo's goal, or at least something that's associated with his goal. So here I would ask, is there anything that he's worried about, in relation to this writing meetup that he's going to attend that day or do? What are the stakes here? Knowing some of these core pieces about the stakes, about his goal, about the conflict, that's what's really going to help Arlo or readers connect emotionally with Arlo from that opening page. So that's what I have. Now I want to give you time, Iris, to answer or to ask follow-up questions. Happy to talk through potential story openings with you. Tell me all your thoughts and reactions. Was that helpful for you?
Oh, it was very helpful. I don't think I have any questions. I think you covered everything for me.
I was very thorough, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas? Is anything occurring to you where you're like, I like the idea of starting with this moment potentially?
Yeah, because like when you mentioned like having that a little bit of conflict at the beginning is kind of good. I definitely want to keep this scene, but not specifically, of course, at the beginning. It could be later, but definitely maybe even regarding like um when he's going to the writing meetup, something happens, or something around those lines, just to start around there and then go based on that as we learn more about him along that.
Yeah, I like it. And what is the writing meetup? Is this like what I'm thinking of, or tell me more about the writing?
Yeah, it's more of a friend group that does like write-ins, kind of like our romance chapter a little bit, is that a few of his friends just meet up and they all work on their stuff together.
Okay, cool, cool. Almost like a writing sprint or a critique group or something like that.
Hmm.
Very cool. Okay, yeah, yeah. So you can, that's where I would start is what is Arlo thinking about? What's he focusing on? What's he worried about? What's his goal, right? And what's going to prevent him, maybe momentarily, or complicate his goal from him being able to achieve it. So good. Does that give you plenty to go out and kind of ruminate over where's the best place to start, how to bring out Arlo's flaw, all of the things?
Yeah, I think so, especially because I've been kind of stuck on it for a little bit, so that definitely does help a lot.
Good, good. And again, this goes for everybody. Getting readers, so getting eyes on your story that are not your own eyes, super, super important. I always say it doesn't matter how intelligent you are as a person, because it's not about intelligence, it's about the inability to be fully objective about our own work. We know way more about our story, about our characters than readers do. And so that's always something to think about. Okay, cool. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And Iris and Chantel, are you guys both on Facebook? Would it be easy for me to just like Facebook message you?
Yeah, I'm
Oh
on
yeah,
Facebook.
I'm already following you.
Okay, perfect. If you can send me a message on Facebook, I'll just message you back and I'll attach this critique for each of you so that you can have my written comments. Okay, perfect. And guys, for anybody who is looking for like another Facebook group, I know you guys have this amazing supportive group here. Stay in it 100%. I do these live critiques once a month in my free private Facebook group for fantasy writers. So you guys are welcome. You're welcome to join. I always say, even if you don't write fantasy, but you just want to join to learn, I'm okay with that. And so you just let me know if you want in. Send me a message on Facebook. You can find me at Nicole Whistler. My name will pop right up. And I'm sure you can just ask Kira if you have any issues finding me, and she can point you in the right direction. But the group is called, here, in fact, I'll just drop the link in the chat really quick. That's the easiest way to do this, isn't it? It's Finish My Fantasy Novel, Write My Best Book. And this is there we go. That is the link where you can join. You guys are all very welcome. Kira, you let me know. I know this was going to be a critique slash editing Q&A. I don't know if you try to keep it to an hour or if people have questions. You just let me know how you like to run things.
Sure. No, I think we've done really well. I wanted to read one question we had talked about, and then maybe open it up to anyone else who's got some questions about the editing process and getting good. And that was
Yes.
how do you know, not just because you can't take it anymore and you can't look at it for one more second, but how do you know when to go from having strangers read it to hiring an editor, developmental or line or copy, copywriting, just any kind of editor that you plan on editing? How do you know when it's time to call it and just hand it off to a professional?
Yes, yes, I love this question. So I would say that it's going to depend on your goal. And so you want to be super clear on your goal first. Am I going to be attempting the traditional publishing route? Am I going to be going the self-publishing route? Because it will make a difference. There are a lot of literary agents that I've talked to who say, if you're going the traditional route, you don't need to hire anybody, whatsoever. And so, of course, though, and I'm sure you guys are all thinking this, you're like, but wouldn't hiring somebody increase your chances of getting it in with the literary agent, right? And so that is true. But at the same time, if you can get a lot of people to read your story and to give you a lot of feedback, you should be able to tell if your story is in a stage where you can go ahead and start querying literary agents. So that's what I would say is, if your goal is traditional publishing, you honestly don't need to hire anybody at all. I'm not saying that that's going to definitely, guarantee your chances of success, right? So that's true of everybody, is the chances of success with traditional publishing are lower, just because the agents they're getting so many submissions. And when I say success, I mean an agent choosing to represent your work. Agents get hundreds and hundreds of queries per week, per month. I think they get sometimes like 1,000 or 2,000 per month. Like, it's crazy. And so you want to think about your goal But at the same time, if you're going for traditional publishing, don't think that you need to hire out for all the different services. Now, if you're self-publishing, that's totally different, because if you're self-publishing and your goal is, I want my story to be the absolute best that it can be, then I recommend hiring as many people as you're able, right? We've got the developmental editor. That's going to be the person who does the big picture edits. So are my character arcs strong? Are we feeling an emotional connection with the characters? Does the story make sense? Are there a ton of plot holes? Is the pacing way off? Like all of those big picture items, you'll want a developmental editor for if you're going the self-publishing route. And then we've got, line editing, which is more for the smoothness of wording. A mistake that I've seen people make, so I know some people offer developmental editing and line editing together, and you want to ask what they mean by together, because if they do a developmental edit, send it back to you, you make the corrections, and then they also handle line editing, that can be okay. That's one thing. But anybody who's saying, I can do a developmental edit and a line edit at the same time for you, that doesn't really make any sense. Because if you're going to be changing some of the big picture items, then we don't need to be worrying about the wording itself until later. And so we've got developmental editor, we've got a line editor, and then we've got a copy editor who's just looking at your story for actual errors, spelling errors, punctuation errors, the actual grammar of your story. Ideally, that's all that they're really doing. Maybe they're checking that, the proper nouns are consistently spelled and capitalized across the book. And then the proofreader, they get the copy of your book that is literally the same copy that readers will actually see. And they're just checking for final errors. So do you need to hire all 4 of those editors if you're self-publishing? Not necessarily, but you do want to get a good sense of where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses. So, do you want to have a book out in the world that has a bunch of grammatical errors? Probably not. You want to make sure to just do your due diligence and get your book what it actually needs. So does that answer the majority of that question, or are there follow-ups to that?
That's great. But I did think of another question. No, that's great. That's a great answer. I completely agree. I'm just sitting here wading my way through picking a dev editor myself. And trying to figure that out, and I just blanked on my question.
It happens.
It's such a good question, and I'm sitting here, I'm listening to you, but I'm in the back. Okay. Oh, I know. Okay. So we've spent time talking tonight about a first page and how important it is to, of course, grab a literary agent. And a lot of us, we spend so much time, punching up our first pages, our first chapter, our first, 30 pages, whatever it is that we're asked for, because we want an agent, an editor to pick us. We want to be picked. How do we make the rest of the book just as good as the first chapter when we spend so much time on the first chapter?
Yes. So this is where you want to get so much feedback from readers. Again, from someone who is not yourself, and ideally not a family member or a close friend either, because they also cannot be objective about your work. There are cases where maybe they can give you good feedback, but overall it's a good guideline, right? It's a good rule of thumb. Find people who do not have strong personal ties to you, people who read in your genre, and they can give you more objective feedback. And so I just blanked on your exact question that you said yes. How do we make the rest of the book as good? So I've heard from literary agents that, and this was actually a surprise to me. I had never heard this before June of this year at book camp, but they were saying that sometimes, not always, and not with every agent, sometimes they will actually request the full, or not even request the full. They will offer representation to a writer without even having read the entire book. So and this is not normal, right? They don't usually do this, but it can happen. And that was a surprise to me. But they're trusting enough in the author's style and in the concept that they're like, this is going to sell. We can do this. If there's any issues in the end, we can fix them. Because what I forgot to mention was the reason that you don't need to have or to hire editors and anybody really in terms of the developmental or the line or the copy editing. If you're going the traditional route, is because they're going to get a team. They'll have a team that does that for you. So we're not skipping those steps, but their team is handling that for you, and you're not paying them any money to do that. So yes, so that's what I would say. Lots and lots and lots of readers who actually read in your genre and enjoy your genre is what I would do.
How do you find those people? Because like I write in a little bit of niche, and it seems like every time I think I found people who even will say they'll take the time to read it, it's bots and scams and all that kind of stuff. So
Yes, you
how
want
do
to
you even
avoid that.
cultivate the
Right.
audience?
Yes. So you can get a pretty good sense of someone by how they communicate. So, like, for example, in my Facebook group, when we do the chapter swap, if someone is reaching out, one writer is reaching out to another and they're saying, hey, I would love some feedback on my book. And they get like a 1-word answer back. And I've had this happen. Yeah, this is a real scenario with somebody. And that's all you get is like really short responses anytime you try to communicate with them. I wouldn't even send them, my chapter or my manuscript as a whole. So the way someone communicates, even online, actually tells you a lot about them. So I wouldn't just like send my manuscript to the first person who volunteers. I would actually treat it not like an interview, right? But I would actually ask them some questions, to make sure they're a good fit to actually read your book. And now no system is perfect. So even if you do that, it doesn't guarantee that the person is going to read your whole book to give you really great feedback, but it does increase the chances of that happening. So I would really vet the people that you're thinking of sending your manuscript to, because you're right. We don't want to send it to people who are not invested in the genre, don't care as much, the scammers, the bots. We don't want them to have their hands on our manuscript at all. And there are some people who even ask me in my group, they'll be like, hey, I just, I did the chapter swap in your group with this person, or, this is the person I was assigned to. Do you know anything about them? Do you know if they're, someone who's going to provide me good feedback? And so sometimes if you can get like a recommendation, that's why it's good to enter into these groups, to make connections with other people, because you're going to get better feedback that way.
Great. And that's and how does a book coach feed into that system?
Yes. Well, that would be the other answer, right? Is yes, yes. So as a book coach, I'm able to talk with my clients and to walk through their outlines, walk through their stories together, look at a bunch of sample scenes that they've written, and give really specific feedback whether they're on the right track. So I've got a few clients who are here watching right now. Hey, Clarence. Hey, Carla. Am I missing anybody? Hey, Amanda. And so they know that I've got like all my modules in place of the how to, right? Like here's how to think about your story on a structural level. Here's how to think about scene writing. Here's how to piece it together in a working outline. Here's how to revise, all the things. And then for my one-to-one clients, we meet in one-to-one sessions and I walk them through wherever they are in the manuscript right now, whether the goal is to finish the book or improve this chapter or solve this plot problem. It's my full-time job and I adore it. So I used to focus on editing, but with coaching, I get so much more personal time with my clients. I get to talk back and forth with them about what they're working on. I've got a group Q&A I'm hosting tomorrow for like my group clients, and it's always a lot of fun. So the first thing I would do is identify what you need, like identify your own goal. Just like as a character, our characters need to have goals. As writers, we need to have goals too. And so we need to be really honest with ourselves and say, is my goal to shoot for traditional publishing? Great. Do I know how to do that? Can I do that on my own? Or do I need some help along the way? Is my goal to improve my writing? and to write my best story. Do I want help along the way with that? That's where the book coach comes in, versus the editor is going to look at the entire book once it's fully complete and give pointers from there.
Very cool. Thank you for answering that. All right, let's open it up. Just a couple. We've got time for a couple of questions. If anyone has some about editing, about coaching, about getting better at what we all do. If anyone's got any questions, that now is the time. I already asked mine, so let's speak if anybody has those questions. And if not, that's totally fine too. Just thought I didn't know.
And any takeaways as well. If you guys are looking at your own story in a new light, or if you notice something that you're like, ooh, I'm going to ask that question when I look at my opening chapter, feel free to share takeaways as well. We'd love to hear.
I think the main thing that I just want to add is I want to back up the need to get other eyes on stuff, because I know how important beta readers are. And that's one of the things I feel like I did do wrong with my series early on, is just didn't get enough feedback. And so I just want to take a second to kind of support that one. I think it's getting beta readers. And the other thing that I love too is sometimes finding another author that you kind of create an accountability plan even with, to like exchange chapter by chapter with another author to be able to give each other feedback as you're going. Sometimes if you can find a partner like that, that can be incredibly helpful, because I know that's something that really helped me, and an author friend of mine that we were exchanging back and forth, because it's not only getting feedback on each other's stories, but it's also that accountability, which is one of the things that I struggle with when I'm writing, is actually sitting down and doing it. But if there's someone bugging me for it, then that helps too. So just ideas.
Yes, great point. And actually, one of my clients, Maggie, she has somebody that is, I'm holding her accountable, but she also has another writer she knows. And they did something really cool recently that I thought this was such a great idea. They agreed that if they can both finish their first drafts by, I think it's the middle of September, if I'm remembering right, then they get whatever reward that they like set in front of them. But they only get the reward if they both meet their goals. And I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
Right. Then it's like, it's not only on them, but it's like what they're doing is actually affecting another person. So I thought that was a brilliant strategy. I love it.
That's what my friend should have done to me, because he finished his. I did not finish mine.
I already
so
have
easy.
enough problems with peer reviews. I have my entire life. It always feels like my peers tend to be idiots. Not always now, but that's just always been. But I'm like, oh, to have an accountability partner where I don't get my present because they screwed up. Oh.
That's a good point. You got to find the right accountability partner. Do that.
So I was going to say that two things. One, I struggled to finish my first draft. Nicole came along and she gave me the ideas that I needed, that I was missing. Made it solid, and now we're going back through it, and it's actually the second draft is actually, I think, filling in more and getting better. But I had a couple people read it. One went through it, loved the idea, loved the concept, had a bunch of changes to make, blah, blah, blah. It looked great. I had another go through it and said that it wasn't her genre, but here's my ideas and what I think would help. And I think sometimes as writers, oh my God, this person doesn't like it. Oh man, they're just crunching that. Oh my God. And you start to say, why am I even listening to this person? You have to, because the things they see are things that you don't think about. And if you stop looking at it as criticism and start looking at it as growth, you will find ways to take the things that they put in and change your story to even better than what it was.
Yeah, that's so true. Don't dismiss what somebody says just because you feel offended. That's like your immediate reaction. Actually listen to what they're saying, and that'll help you decide, is this valid advice? Because it, like you said, if it is something that they're misunderstanding, there's a reason for that. And if it's that they, have something they're holding against you and they skimmed your story and didn't read it at all, well, that's one thing. But if it's not really their genre, but they're still pointing out misunderstandings that they had in the story, that's worth paying attention to. So totally agree, Clarence.
There was a comment you put in the sidebar on one of the pages today, Nicole, that said, "What do you want the reader to feel here?" And I think that word, to me, it helps a lot on like which feedback is most useful versus like where is the reader or the feedback person maybe crossing the line. Like if they felt a certain way when they read it, like you can't argue with that. That's just how they felt. And readers are going to be, a lot of them probably feeling the exact same way. If they're prescribing, here's how to fix it, like, oh, that's my job. I'm the writer, but that doesn't stop
Exactly.
you from feeling a certain way when you read it.
Yes, that's so, so, so true. I love that so much. That's something I recommend a lot as well. Basically, what you just said, the reader is, they can say whatever they want, right, in reaction. But if they're prescribing something, if they're saying, I was bored here, so I think you really need to add in a fight scene. Like, I think that's what this needs in this exact moment. Well, that might or might not be true. What we want to get at is, what's the problem with the scene? Is there a problem with the scene? What is that problem? And what are all the different ways we can fix it? Them saying there needs to be a fight scene, or I think you need to add more characters. We're like, what? But like, why? Why are you saying that? So also asking your readers a lot of follow-up questions. The good ones will be happy to answer. If they're blowing you off, if they're not expanding on their answer, I don't know, I just felt that way. Then that's either saying something about it's just outside their skill set, which is fine, or it's not, maybe not worth continuing the conversation because you're not going to get as much value from that. But great point, Brent. I totally agree with that.
I had someone literally tell me online last night that my story idea was stupid because she didn't like the direction I was taking a mythological character.
Sounds like your
What?
story is not for her.
Not
That's
for her. I was
okay.
like, okay, well, you're yeah, it was a whole thing that I spent the whole day going, it's a myth. Who cares? I can do whatever I want. I can pair her with Rocky Raccoon and it doesn't even matter. It's my story. Or not
Exactly.
my
And that's
reader.
kind of a red flag comment there when someone's like, what if you just, I don't like the direction. Like, I don't really like your concept. What if you did this instead? Or this, would be cool. And if it's changing the vision you have for your story, not in terms of telling the same story more effectively, that's something totally separate. But like you just said, if it's changing the direction of the entire story, then you're like, why don't you go out and write that story? And I
Yeah,
will write the story that I want to tell.
it's my story.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, if anyone's got any last questions, comments, queries, any of that stuff, love to hear it. Otherwise, we'll start wrapping it down. Anybody?
Great session today. Thank you guys all for being here.
Yay! Chosen One is a classic for a reason. Yes. Yes. And
I'm
I
just
can make my
saying.
grumpy Medusa and my golden retriever Andromeda fall in love all I want. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming, newcomers and old comers. We really, really appreciate it. Nicole, thank you so much for your time. You've been amazing. And I appreciate your willingness to give up a Thursday evening. I guess it's night for you, like Thursday night, to come and talk to us and bestow your wisdom upon us. We appreciate it.
Yes, happy to be here. Happy to have met you all if I hadn't met you before.
Yay. All right. I will we'll stop the recording now and I will share that once it's done. What's the word? Processing. So I'll stop it.